Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Super excited. I have Sonya Shelton here with me today from sunny LA. So, Sonya, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Me too. Me too. And I know our audience is too. And so I want to take a minute and thank them for joining us because we know everybody has a choice as to what podcast you listen to. We try to make sure we bring amazing women with great stories, great conversations, so that, you get some of those tips and snippets that are really going to have impact on your life. And so we're grateful to have Sonya here today. And I'm going to give you just a little bit of feedback about Sonya so you have a context of who she is, what she does. And as I said, she's from sunny LA. It's always sunny there, right? Yes.
Not lately, but most of the time,
Oh.
yes.
Well, I'm jealous because you get that warm weather, and being in Canada, we have 6 months of winter.
Yes.
Yeah. So welcome, everyone. So let me give you some feedback on Sonya. So when it comes to navigating the ins and outs of business, she has seen it all, from successful startups with brand new ideas to well-established Fortune 500 companies. She founded the Executive Leadership Consulting in 2007 from her passion for partnering with leaders and high achievers to create that clear vision and build work environments where employees are fulfilled and completely committed to the organization's success. And that's so important because oftentimes it's, whatever the founder or the organization is, and in pulling in those employees is so important. So I'm super excited to learn more about this, Sonya. She has captured her leadership tips and success stories in her #1 best-selling book, You're an Executive, but Are You a Leader? And this is what really caught my eye when Sonya's name came forward as a potential guest with us. So I'm excited for us to jump into that. And so she herself has been an executive as well as an international speaker and consultant. She knows how to tap into those lesser known hidden practices that really drive true leadership. Her philosophy, background, and experience add a strategic, pragmatic, and multidimensional approach to helping strong leaders. She serves on the Forbes Coaches Council and is a certified master corporate executive coach through the Association of Corporate Executive Coaches. So, Sonya, welcome. We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you. That was a great intro. I love it.
Yeah. It's amazing when you hear somebody else say who you are. It's like, really, I've done a lot, haven't I?
Right, exactly.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here. And so I'm excited for, you to share more about your book. And as I said, that really caught my eye when, your name was presented as a potential guest on the show. Often people, they think that just because you have a title that it automatically makes you a leader. And you and I both know that that's not true. And so I'm excited to just, dig into, what you think the difference is between an executive and a leader. So let's just start with that.
Yeah, I think there can be differences in that if somebody is an executive and just kind of operating as the weight of their title, expecting people to follow them. Whereas a leader is somebody who is followed and doesn't necessarily need to have a title, right? So you can be a leader without being an executive, and you can be an executive without being a leader. But when you put them together and you're an executive who is also a leader, you create a team that's unstoppable, right? Because, starting with understanding what is it going to take to get people to follow you? Who do you have to be? How do you have to communicate? What do you have to do to get them on board and on the same page to be able to follow you?
Yeah, that's such an important distinction, right? What you just said, right? Because you can mandate people have to follow, or you inspire others to follow. And that is actually quite significant. And we see that all the time in organizations, right? And leaders will leave an organization and their whole team follows because they work for that leader. Yeah, I love that. So what really prompted you then to write this #1 Amazon best-selling book?
Yeah, I think just seeing, I think first of all, through my experience as an executive and the things that I went through, I recognized that sometimes your environment can impact how you show up as a leader. right? So
Mm.
how your culture, the culture that's around you, the situation that you're in can make you lose yourself as a leader. And I experienced that myself in my last position. So I was the head of employee communications globally at the Walt Disney Company. And we went through um I was there at a time when nobody in my position had been through this, and nobody in that position will ever be through this again. So it was a very unique time where we had a member of the Disney family, Roy Disney, was leading a shareholder revolt against our CEO at the time, who was Michael Eisner. And
Oh.
so I worked for this company who is known for having an outstanding culture.
Mhm.
And at a time when we're basically experiencing like a divorce in the company,
Mm.
right? And the impact on me as a leader through going through that, which was very political and a lot of fear and uncertainty, and a lot of things being talked about in the media about the company, and so employees were distracted. And as the head of internal communications, I was getting the mandate of keep people focused, keep people excited about working at the company, um and so I was under a lot of pressure, and I was running my team pretty hard through that. Like I was taking that pressure and putting it on them. And I got that feedback, right? And that how it impacted them, and how they sort of gave up and didn't want to follow me anymore, because I was trying to run so fast that they couldn't keep up, so they just stopped. Right. Right.
Well, you get that, right?
And
You're out of breath. The legs stop
yeah,
working.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so through that experience, and having that wake up call through the feedback that they gave me, I realized, like, I know better, but this environment that I'm in, I'm now sort of taking that and putting that on them. And it just created this tremendous empathy of for leaders and the position that they're in, and especially executives, and the amount of pressure that they're in, when things are tough. And I just wanted to give a guidebook on, so how can you navigate all that? And everything that I did about the book was thinking about them, right? So it's 50 chapters, 3 pages each. You don't have time when you're an executive, right? So I like thought about, so it's a tip. How do you apply it? How would you apply it? How did someone else apply it? With a case study, and then coaching questions I would ask, right? And so I was really thinking about what would I need as an executive from a book? I don't have time to sit down and read 400 pages to get the information. I just sometimes I need some quick advice. And
Mm.
so that's kind of how I created the book and what I thought about. And then looking at the framework on where does leadership start? Well, leadership starts with me,
Yeah.
right? So starting with the individual, and then looking at, okay, if I understand how I'm leading myself, am I present? Am I aware of what's going on? Am I seeing what's going on within myself? Do I know my superpowers and my strengths, right? And why I'm doing what I'm doing? Where's my motivation come from? And then looking at, okay, if I know how to lead myself, then I can start to think about, where do I want to go? And so in the book, I talk about one vision, one voice, and one
Mm.
direction, right? So starting with understanding where I want to go. What's that one vision? Everybody in the organization can have their own goals towards that vision, but we're aligned on that vision. And then the same with one voice, like, and that's two-way. It's not just from the leader to the team. It's the team back to the leader too, that
Absolutely.
everybody is coming together and has an opportunity to express themselves, to bring ideas, and then ultimately one direction. So that's really looking at, how's your organization designed, your processes, your systems. Is that all supporting your purpose and vision and where you want to go?
Wow. Okay, you said so many things there. So there's several questions I have based on that, because I'll take you back to when you first started. So thank you for that, because I think that's a great overview of the book, and also the importance for leaders to be able to have a guide to say, here's some support, right? Um, but what you shared about that environment and how that impacts leaders, because oftentimes people forget that the leader is a human being as well, and what's happening around us has a significant impact as to how we show up. And so I appreciate, and you took me back to memory lane of my own leadership, being in those situations where it was potentially highly toxic, and how I didn't show up as my best self. And that is, first of all, important for us to acknowledge and recognize that we are human, and we can be impacted. But I think it's also important for people that are listening to recognize that you also have to be empathetic to your leader, right? Because they are dealing with multiple complexities, especially in today's environment. And you're only catching a glimpse of it. And we protect as much as we can that information from trickling downhill, but sometimes it has to. So yeah, thank you for that. And just for our audience perspective, I think it's important to reflect on your own leadership journey, and where could you maybe have been more empathetic to your leader, and recognizing what's happening in the environments that you're sitting in. Yeah, beautiful. And so let's talk a little bit more about that why, right? Because you covered several things there: the one voice, the one direction, the action, like all super important to create that picture, that visual for people to get behind and have that purpose. But then they individually have their own why. So what is your why? Let's talk about your why, because now you're an executive coach and working with organizations. So let's talk about why that's important to you.
Yeah. So I used to think that I knew my why, in that I, through my experience at Disney, that I wanted to help organizations. And then I came across this process that we use now that we call the why connection, where it's really looking at what is your why beyond work? What is your
Mm-hmm.
why beyond your family? Beyond, most people think why is my family, or I want to make it, I want to make a big difference in the world, or it might be my faith, right? Like, and those are more who's and what's, not necessarily your why. And so we talk about why as your driver, and what really motivates you. And then we add to that your how and your what, right? So not just your why and what drives you, but also how do you deliver that why? How do you internally process information? And then ultimately, what can others expect from you, right? So it's like my superpower. So my why is, I believe success happens when I partner with others to have a bigger impact. And how I do that is by finding better ways and sharing them. And then ultimately what I deliver is simple solutions. I know when, if I'm not having an impact, I'm not going to be motivated. I'm not going to be fulfilled. Right. So my why is really my why is called contribute, right? Which is, if I'm not contributing, if I'm not able to make a contribution, if I'm working with a company or a client that doesn't want to change, I'm out, right? Because I know I'm not going to be fulfilled. I'm going to get upset. They're going to be frustrated. I'm going to be frustrated, right? So having that information and understanding that about me helps me make decisions, also helps me hire people, right? So when I actually share my why when I do interviews, and I tell them this is, because I'm the founder of the company, it has an impact on the culture. My how's better way. So that means I'm always changing things, right? I'm always saying, what do our clients need now? How can we do this better? And for some people, that's not a great environment for them, right? They like
Absolutely.
stability, they like status quo. And so I say up front in the interview, this is my why connection. This is how it shows up in our culture. And that might not be for you, and that's okay, right? So it's better for them to know up front. So it really just helps to drive clarity. And then I can really leverage that as my superpower in having the biggest impact.
Love it. Love it. And I love how you talk about, it's not just about, well, it is the why, but it's the how, the who, putting all those things together. And that keeps you in alignment with everything that you do, right? So how does that contribute to effective leadership?
Yeah. So first, understanding who you are. Right. And understanding what you bring to the table, and what like I said, what we call your superpower. How do you really leverage that superpower for your success? And then what I find is most important is also communicating that why. So like I said, even me sharing it with our team or potential team members helps people understand why I'm doing it. So for example, my how is better way, that change can be misinterpreted as, you give me an idea, I think about, oh, that's a great idea. How could we make it better? Well, that might land on you as not liking your idea or being critical of you, right? And so when other people understand this is how you operate, then they understand, oh, that's not personal. That's just who she is, right? And
Exactly. Yeah.
so we work with teams even to say, let's understand everybody on the team's why connection, and so that they can understand each other. So for example, I had one team that we worked with where the leader of the team had a why of challenge. Like, she likes to challenge the status quo, break the box, always looking at, how do we get around the rules to get to where we want to go. And then her number two had in her how, what's called right way. So looking at predictable systems and processes to get results. Like, how do we get things that are repeatable that we know we can count on? So you can imagine these two, right? We're at each other's throats pretty
I was
much,
going to
right?
say, yeah,
And
oil and
yeah,
water.
yeah, exactly. But once they understood how they operate and the superpowers that they bring, they
Yeah.
saw they could be complementary, right? So when we need to be innovative, we bring the challenge. When we need more standardization, when we need to follow the policies and procedures, we bring the right way, right? And so having that understanding with a team can really start to break down some of those conflicts,
Yeah.
develop trust, and also they can leverage each other, right? So to say, like, this isn't, I'm not good at this, I can use this other person or bring this other person in to collaborate with me and partner with me to make this happen. And then we work through creating a team why, so that they have, how do we operate as a team? Why do we exist as a team? How do we operate as a team? And what can others outside of our team expect from us, right?
Yeah.
So really looking at, I totally agree with Simon Sinek in starting with why. And he has this quote that I love about, when you work hard for something that you don't like, or you sort of feel mediocre about, then you have stress. But when you work hard for something that you love, then that's passion,
Yeah.
right? And so that's really what we're about, is like really helping you understand your why, so that you can be passionate about the work that you're doing.
Well, and I also heard you say, Sonia, that, the way that you're working with people is helping them accelerate by using the strengths of each person. So once you know those superpowers of each individual, that actually excels. And, it's less about the competition and
Right.
more about the greater whole, right? And everybody, including the organization, excelling. Love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you
Absolutely.
do if you don't know what your why is? I mean, I hear that a lot from clients. I'm sure you do as well, where they're like, I don't really know. I mean, I just fell into this job, or, I don't know what my why is.
Yeah. Well, like I say, we take them through a process. It's fascinating how it came about, actually through the foundation of the work of Simon Sinek and the work that he did with discovering your why. And they eventually created it into this technology with AI to be able to ask you questions to get to your why. And the reason why people have such a hard time finding it is because it lives in the limbic part of the brain that
Sure.
doesn't have language, right? So if we can't identify it with words, then how can we really describe it, right?
Mhm.
So that's why I love the system, because it sort of gets underneath all that and finds what your real why is. And then once you know that, then you can you can start making decisions based on it. Is this the right role for me? um if it is the right role for me, how can I really bring fulfillment, which is ultimately, where my why leads to my purpose, right? Is around, really having people be fulfilled at work and loving what they do and having passion about it. Does that mean that every day is like flowers and rainbows? No, right? But you can be passionate about challenges too,
Oh,
right?
of
If you really
course.
understand the purpose behind what you're doing, right? And if you're really connected to your own purpose and the purpose of the organization, then you can become unstoppable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And it's not a one and done either, right? Because
Right.
we're always evolving as human beings. And, in the beginning, it might take a little while to even, peel the onion layers back and get even deeper with that why, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that can shift, right? Like, I think that's such an important piece that, just the discovery process is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love that. So, what do you feel that leaders and organizations need to do now in order to have that impact, on our world? Like, we're in such a interesting time, and things are happening so fast, and the complexities are far greater than where we were even 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So what do you see, or what do you feel are the things that leaders need to do?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Right now, we're in time of incredibly fast change and a ton of uncertainty,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't we work across multiple industries and different sizes of companies, as you mentioned at the beginning, right? And I'm seeing it consistently across every organization that we work with is this uncertainty, overwhelm, just feeling like things are moving so fast and what I see as the antidote to that is really focusing on purpose.
Yeah.
And by purpose, I don't mean necessarily, like sustainability or climate or, things that are for the world, but what is your purpose as an organization? And that serves two purposes. It's one, um, aligning your team and motivating your team and creating that passion for what you're doing as an organization. But it's also externally to your clients and customers
Mm,
they're actually making buying decisions based on purpose, right?
yeah.
So if they're aligned with your purpose and as an organization, they'll spend more money with you.
Yeah.
They'll choose you over other options because they're aligned with your purpose. And so I see that as a way to sort of get through all of it, right? To when you're in uncertainty and change, what you
Mhm.
need is clarity and and purpose brings clarity, right? This is who we are, this is what we do. Add the vision to that, this is where we're going. Is how we're going to get there going to shift and change along the way as dynamics change in the environment and the economy and technology? Yes, absolutely. But we have our North Star. We know where we're going and we know who we are. And that makes it easier for us to make decisions and say, yes, this is for us, or no, that's not for us as we're dealing with this uncertainty and change.
Yeah. Love that. I love that. And you just made me think about, I was at a conference on Tuesday. I'm like, what day are we in? On
Right.
Tuesday, and talking about just specifically what you just said, right? And the importance and I would just add one thing to what you said about who is your end user, right? And how the decisions we make, the purpose that we have is all about that end user and how that impacts them. And this conference, they were talking about the Gen Z, right? And how what's important to them from a work, shopping, um, everything, right? And they're more experiential, and how important it is to really understand that, and how tactile, right? They want to be able to touch, to feel, but yet they're still heavy on social. And just fascinating, though, to not try and be all things to all people, but really focusing in on, what is your purpose and how does that impact the ones that you are serving. So I love that. So, Sonia, I'm cognizant of, where we are on time wise here, because I know we could continue here for quite a while, but what's maybe one or even two things that you think would be important for our audience to action, think about, boldly express, from listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I think the just the importance of having your own touchstone, right? I think that because I see a big trend in increasing burnout
Mm.
and really getting clear on who you are and what you stand for and where you want to go, even as a person, right? Not sure your company, that's important too, but for your listeners who are listening as a person, like who am I and where do I want to go? And how can I use that to help me get out of burnout? And then the second thing I would add is to celebrate the wins, because I think when we're running so fast and we're losing sight, I'm seeing this happen, for people and organizations alike, right? To we're moving so fast, we're not stopping to celebrate those accomplishments along the way. And so we feel like we're on this treadmill and not really getting anywhere. And so it's really taking those moments just to stop and say, oh, look what we did. Right. And let's celebrate that and see that we are making progress, that we are moving forward and growing.
Yeah, I love that and agree 100%. Yeah, because in order to connect to that why, you got to see where you're going for sure, and what you are accomplishing, and we don't do enough of that.
Yeah.
So thank you for spending time with us today. And I know they can find your book on Amazon, but where else can they find you? Maybe share your social channels, because I know you do some tips maybe on YouTube and
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So you can find connections to all our socials on our website at executiveleader.com. Can reach out to me personally, Sonya Shelton on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn and respond personally if you have any questions, and constantly share tips and things like that. So yeah, would love to connect.
Awesome. And I would highly recommend pick up her book. Do some time to, do some reading and exploring some of those different conversations that Sonya mentioned with regards to leading yourself, and then how to create that, especially to our leaders, how to create that one voice, one direction, getting that action happening toward those specific agenda items. I think that's important. And Sonya, thank you so much for being here today. It's always grateful to hear inspiring conversations from individuals around the world. And, we appreciate you taking time and just sharing, why it's important to build your why.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you. It was a great conversation. I loved it.
Oh, good. And I want to thank our audience because, I said this earlier, but I know you have a choice as to what podcast you listen to. And, if you ever have recommendations, please reach out. Let me know what other types of conversations you'd like to hear about. My goal is to be able to touch at least one person with one conversation and that have an impact on your life. So thank you for spending this time with us. And if you're curious about your own leadership, you can go on our website at willempowered.com, take our free leadership quiz. It'll give you some insight as to how you're showing up as a leader. And if you have questions about that, you can reach out to me directly. I'm also on LinkedIn, but we're grateful for you for being here today. And we look forward to seeing you on our next podcast. Take care, everyone. And thank you for joining us.